Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Esther
with Brady Randall.
We've reached the end of Esther chapter 5 today, and we'll pick up with verses 9 to 14. Haman went out that day happy and in high spirits. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate and observed that he neither rose nor showed fear in his presence, he was filled with rage against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. Calling together his friends and Zeresh, his wife, Haman boasted to them about his vast wealth, his many sons, and all the ways the king had honored him and how he had elevated him above the other nobles and officials. And that's not all. Haman added, I am the only person Queen Esther invited to accompany the king to the banquet she gave. And she has invited me along with the king tomorrow. But all this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see the Jew Mordecai sitting at the king's gate. His wife Zeresh and all her friends said to him, have a pole set up reaching to a height of 50 cubits and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai impaled on it. Then go with the king to the banquet and enjoy yourself. This suggestion delighted Haman, and he had a pole set up. And I can't help but think of the irony that's going on here. Haman thinks that he's the king of the world, nothing can bring him down, and he happens to run into Mordecai and expects Mordecai to treat him as royalty. And when he doesn't, he's filled with rage. Haman further boasts about his wealth, his sons, how he's been elevated above the other officials, and only Queen Esther has invited him to accompany the king to the banquet. So in all of Haman's pride, with his wife and friend's suggestion, he has a pole set up, or a gallows of sort, that would have been about 75 feet high to impale or hang Mordecai. And the sheer irony here, as we'll see in the later chapters, is the very instrument that he sets up to kill Mordecai is the same instrument on which he will die. Now just consider the pride of Haman compared to the humility of Esther. It could not be more stark. And God promises time and time again that pride comes before the fall. I've heard it said that there are really only two kinds of people in this world: humble people and those who will be humbled. In James chapter 4, it says that God gives grace to the humble, but he opposes the proud. And in verse 10 of chapter 4, he says, humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Can you think of anything worse than being opposed by God? That God will give grace to those who are humble in heart, but he will oppose the proud? I don't know if you've ever had one of those humiliating experiences that absolutely just knocks you over. I remember I was in 9th or 10th grade, and I was on the golf team, and we had a really good golf team. I was one of the freshmen, and I happened to be practicing. It was just me and the coach kind of following up the rear. And as we were playing, the coach and I both hit shots in opposite directions, both hit bad shots. We're looking for balls, and then finally, I just took a ball, laid it down by the water, and I hit it up in play as normal. And we get to the next tee box, the coach comes up to me and he says, Brady, if I wouldn't have known any better, it looks as though you may have cheated by just putting that ball down. And I was absolutely humiliated because I didn't think anything of it. I just put the ball down. I played in. It's just a practice round. And yet it was as if I was caught red-handed cheating on a golf course in front of my coach. And I could not have been any more humiliated in that moment. And again, just kind of even reliving that story, I'm humiliated again. I essentially cheated, was caught, and called out for it. I wanted to run away. I wanted to cry, but there I was undone. And Haman is really a sorry tale that pride will ultimately get us in the end. God promises as much. Maybe not now, maybe not even in this lifetime, but God ultimately opposes the proud. I think about the steroid users in Major League Baseball several years ago and how they got exposed and how humiliating that was for many of them. And maybe something right now in your life has caused you to be prideful. Maybe it's something no one else knows about, but God knows. And my prayer for me and for you is that you and I would humble ourselves now so that God won't have to later. You see, Esther embodied humility, but Esther was a fallen human being, just like you and I. She was an instrument in the hand of God. But the greatest humility I can think of was Jesus Christ, who was God, who is God, who was God in human flesh, and yet he did not consider equality with God as something to be used to his own advantage, but he humbled himself and took the form of a servant. And in the most humiliating way possible, he endured the humble cross, death, in your place and mine. And so in response to what Jesus Christ has done, may you and I decrease and may Jesus increase in us and for the rest of our lives.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.